I don't know about you, but whenever the holiday season rolls around, in my family, that means three things: good food, presents, and horrible yet unavoidable arguments with my relatives about politics that usually result in me never wanting to see any of these people again, or at least until next year. It's like we fall into this trap where we start out having a polite discussion, but sooner or later we end up falling down a hole of insults, exaggerations, and lies. Arguments that you know aren't right, but you just can't seem to explain why. Well, that's because most of the logical arguments made in these discussions aren't actually logical at all. They're logical fallacies, or arguments based on faulty or false logic. And once you learn how to spot them, you will never fall into their trap again. So let's look at just a few. This one's the easiest to spot because it's the classic cheap shot. If someone is making arguments that you don't agree with, instead of attacking the arguments, it's a lot easier just to attack them as a person. Which brings us to ad hominem, which is Latin for against the man. Ad hominem occurs when someone uses a personal attack to discredit an argument made by their opponent. For instance, let's say that at Thanksgiving, you and your cousin Eric start discussing the results of yesterday's football game. But when you disagree with Eric about a certain play, he calls you a nerd and says that you just don't understand football. You doing well in school has nothing to do with your ability to understand football. That's simply false logic used to discredit your claims about the game. Man, why is Eric such a jerk? Sometimes, to avoid attacking an opponent's arguments, people will attack arguments their opponent never actually made. This is done by making a false claim that your opponent holds a certain belief, and using that false belief to discredit their argument. This is called straw man, because just like scarecrows are used to scare birds, false beliefs are used to scare people away from an opposing argument. For example, let's say you're sitting around the dinner table and your Aunt Mildred begins talking about a political candidate that she doesn't like. You say you really like that candidate because they support free college tuition, which you think is a really important step toward reducing inequality. Your Aunt Mildred then turns to your dad and tells him that he needs to make you get a job because you expect everything in your life to be handed to you for free. Your aunt took your claim, twisted it, and turned it into a different claim that falsely represents your beliefs, just to discredit you and your argument. Geez, Aunt Mildred, your pecan pie isn't that good anyway. This logical fallacy paints a scary picture of a false causal relationship, with one thing leading to several other events that ultimately result in some kind of disaster, like when your sister's boyfriend Chad insists that immigration will lead to unemployment, which will hurt our economy, which will make people angry, which will result in people killing each other in the streets. Chad has no proof that any of these things will happen because of immigration. This is false logic, like your sister's false logic that Chad is a good guy. But hey, that's family for you. Love him or hate him, at least now you'll be able to call out their logical fallacies, which might be the best gift they get this whole season.